Hey, it's me. Welcome to another episode of the Paul Leslie Hour. And on this episode, we are joined by Ben de la Cour. Ben de la Cour has been called a master storyteller, a true troubadour, an enigma, a revitalizing force. His album, The High Cost of Living Strange, is out now. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. And in addition to doing this interview with us, you're also going to play a few songs for us?
I am.
All right. So how about introducing our listeners to your music? What are you going to play for us?
I'm going to play a song called Guy Clark's Fiddle. It was written about this broken fiddle that Guy Clark had sitting in his basement for, I don't know how many years, countless years. And supposedly he kept it around just to remind him not to break any kind of musical instrument ever. And I thought that was as good a thing to write a song about as any. And then I wrote the song, and I got to open for Verlin Thompson last year, who was Guy's kind of longtime collaborator and guitar player. And when I came off stage, Verlin goes, "Oh man, it's a nice song. I'm glad you wrote it. I've been looking at that goddamn fiddle for 30 years." I thought that was fun. Yeah. So here it is, Guy Clark's Fiddle. There's no fiddling pieces hanging up on Guy Clark's wall, broken 40 years ago for reasons unrecalled. And he still keeps it up there, so he remembers when he destroyed something that'll never be whole again. Breaking things is easy, repairing them's a bitch. And in the end, not everything is wanting to be fixed. Hearts are made of softer things, not just wire and wood. And sometimes when they're broken, they stay that way for good. Bodies fail, cities fall into the sea. With every turn we take, we taunt catastrophe. But every day I wake to find the dawn unmoved, and then I become all the things I won't make whole again. There's a photograph I keep inside my guitar case, and though it's frayed and faded, I can still make out her face. But I still keep it in there, so I remember when I destroyed something that'll never be whole again. Bodies fail, cities fall into the sea. With every turn we take, we taunt catastrophe. But every day I wake to find the dawn unmoved, and then I've become all the things I won't make whole again.
All right. Nice.
Hey,
Thank you very much.
it's my pleasure.
So tell us, Guy Clark, was he a big influence on you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think anybody who plays these kind of writes these kind of songs is, even if they don't know it, are definitely owe a debt of gratitude to Guy, and I definitely feel like I do.
Tell us about some of the songwriters. You mentioned Guy Clark, but the ones that have been the biggest influence on you.
I would say Townes Van Zandt, Guy Clark, Warren Zevon, Nick Cave. I really love Shane MacGowan from the Pogues. You know, obviously Bob Dylan was kind of a very formative influence on me when I was really young. Leonard Cohen. I really like Jeffrey Lee Pierce from the Gun Club. He's a really good songwriter. Great band. Yeah, you know, that kind of stuff.
What made you want to take on such a hard business? It's such a competitive, it's a very hard road going into music.
You know, I mean, it's hard to say. Probably a lack of realization, lack of self-realization. You know, masochistic tendencies. I don't, you know, I mean, it's like I don't really, you know, it never felt like a usually kind of conscious choice for me. You know, it was like I've pretty much written songs and stuff like this since I was pretty young, you know, and played in bands and, you know, different kind of bands and wrote songs, and I don't know, it just kind of felt like it was always just kind of what I was doing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, when I kind of realized how ridiculous it was already kind of too late.
What does it feel like to write a song?
Frustrating. You know, I was reading this interview with like an airline pilot, and he was saying, you know, someone was like, what's it like being a pilot? And he was like, oh, it's, you know, 10,000 hours of sheer boredom and then 3 minutes of sheer terror. That's kind of like how writing a song is, like 10,000 hours of frustration and then like 2 minutes of kind of real joy that you feel like you captured something. And then you're like, well, I'll never write another song again. That was it. That was the only good song I'll ever write. And then so you're right back to the frustration. I feel like, you know, it's somehow there's something there that keeps coming back.
I've heard a lot of people say it's painful, like you're saying. It's not the liberating experience a lot of people think it might be.
No, I mean, moments of it are liberating, but they're pretty few and far between. But it's like an abusive relationship, you know? It's like a few moments of real love and joy kind of are what keep you coming back. I certainly don't feel like there's some songwriters I know who kind of like to lift themselves up to this kind of lofty standard of their people need to hear their songs or they're doing the world some kind of service, which I think is a total ego trip and also just nonsense to think that the world needs another, you know, like sad songwriter thing. You know, it's mostly a selfish endeavor, but you know, I do think that there is a possibility that you're tapping into something a little bigger, but I don't think I certainly don't think it's for the benefit of humanity like some people like to paint it.
You've lived in a number of places. I'm hoping you can tell us about the different places that you've lived.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to travel, to live in a variety of places. I was born in London, but I left when I was a year old. That was obviously not on my own volition. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and then since then I kind of lived I lived in Havana for a while. I moved back to the UK as an adult for a few years. I lived in LA for a little while. I lived in New Orleans for a long while. I lived in now I've been in Nashville for 5 years.
And tell us about the experiences that you had in Havana, Cuba.
Well, yeah, actually, music was kind of my backup choice. I honestly, not my backup choice, but it was on the back burner for a while. I thought that I was really into boxing for about 6 years of my life, from about 14 to 20, and I really thought, I was going to end up becoming a professional boxer. I had a bunch of amateur fights, but I'm glad I didn't, because I was definitely don't think I was good enough to be anything except for a human punching bag in the long run. But yeah, that was a trip, going over to Cuba and training with some of the people from the national team, and just again being a human punching bag for a while. It was fun.
What are your most vivid memories from Havana?
Man, that's an interesting question. I think that at night they have this thing, the Malecon, which is just this seawall that runs along the edge of the city, and people there congregate at night. And I'd have my guitar and my friends, and we'd go and hang out there and drink around, and just sometimes you play a little bit for tourists, and sometimes you meet a lot of other people who are playing for tourists, or just who are hanging out down there. So you get into all kinds of weird adventures. That was fun. I actually wrote kind of a song about that on my last album, which is actually called Midnight in Havana, the one before this new one. And the title track is kind of about that. And it felt kind of great. It was like I was 19 years old. I was thousands of miles away from anyone I knew. This is kind of, this is over a decade ago, so they didn't really have the internet there. So I was kind of out of communication with anyone and everyone. I didn't know what was going on. It was nice. It was great. I kind of felt, it felt great, but now I feel like that was a different person. It's hard to reconcile that with my life now, and with anything, really.
Well, would you like to play that song for us?
Sure. I haven't played in a long time, but I'd love to give it a go.
All right.
All right, this is Midnight in Havana. It's midnight in Havana. All the sails are in the wind. There's a warm breeze blowing from a far off place, and I don't know where I've been. Neon lights are blinding. There's thunder in the bay. The air is heavy and it smells like rain. There's an old man fishing on a rubber tube, beer bottles tied to his feet. There's a pretty girl whispering in my ear, and I'm trying to be discreet. Whoever it is, send me here. I've got questions that need asking, but it's midnight in Havana. It'll have to wait till morning. Wake up soaked with sweat, cold steel underneath my pillow. Sit up over at the hotel bar with another cold buccanero. Sunshine froze me half to death. I swear to God I'm dying. Somebody please get me off of this rock. Lord knows I've been trying. There's an old man fishing in a rubber tube, beer bottles tied to his feet. There's a pretty girl whispering in my ear, but I'm trying to be discreet. Whoever it is, send me here. I've got questions that need asking, but it's midnight in Havana. It'll have to wait till morning. When I meet my connection out on the Malecon, but I ran into Rosalina. Now my connection's gone. I swear I saw Hemingway's ghost outside La Bodequita. I staggered through the square with my pockets bare and a soul-crushing hangover. My closet's filled with a stranger's clothes and none of my shoes fit. I keep getting these calls in the dead of night, asking where the action is. Tried to talk to the concierge, son of a bitch wouldn't look me in the eye. I said, gave me an ice cream cone. It told me I was gonna die. There's an old man fishing in a rubber tube, beer bottles tied to his feet. There's a pretty girl whispering in my ear, but I'm trying to be discreet. Whoever it is that put me here, I've got questions that need asking, but it's midnight in Havana. It'll have to wait till morning.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, how did you get into boxing? What about boxing?
I don't know, like I said, I guess I have some kind of latent masochistic tendency.
There it is again.
I don't know, I just kind of, I got into like a decent amount of garden variety trouble in school. Got kicked out of a couple of schools, and my dad, where we lived was right near this pretty world famous gym in Brooklyn called Gleason's Gym, famous boxing gym, and he's like, "Why don't you go down there? You like fighting so much." And it's not like I really love fighting. I just was like a troublemaker, I guess. And so I did, and I stayed there for 4 or 5 years.
I've heard this word used, American noir.
Yeah.
Tell us exactly what that is and how you got that idea.
I don't really know. It just kind of came. It just came to me. I was thinking Americana and then American noir, and I was like, well, that's silly. And I was like, oh, that's, It's silly, but I found it kind of funny. Yeah.
Do you think truth is important when you're a songwriter?
Depends what your definition of truth is. Yeah, it really, what do you mean by truth?
I don't know. What's your definition?
I think when it comes to art, truth is a little more fluid.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's maybe a little bit more subjective. I mean, I think that you have to stay true to, as cliche as it sounds, like you have to stay true to the song, but you don't have to stay true to the story. Like, it's like, I think it was, trying to remember what director it was. I don't know, some famous John Ford, maybe, the Western director.
Hmm.
He said when it comes to truth or the story, or truth or the legend, or truth or the story, print the legend. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's the important thing is like what's going to tell a better story and what's going to, as long as you're not like totally changing the meaning of historical events to fit your narrative, which it seems to be the popular method of political expression right now. But if as long as you're staying true to the story, then truth is something that can be, shifted, manipulated, however you want to put it.
Hmm. So you make your home in Nashville these days?
I do.
Do you like it?
I love
Why?
it. I just think it's a really great, like nurturing community of creative people who are hustling, but not like hustling in a gross way, like in LA, but hustling in like actually creating art that they feel is meaningful and helping each other, and 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 I think it's I like it how you kind of got to dig a little bit below the surface to find all the cool stuff.
Do you find it to be a competitive place?
I mean, not really. Like, I mean, I think there are a lot of good songwriters, but I mean, if you're a songwriter, don't you want to be where all the good songwriters are? Like, I don't want to be the best songwriter in Omaha. Like, it's not really I think it's good to be around the people who are, this is where Guy Clark lived, this is where John Prine still lives. It's pretty, those guys think it's good enough, and it's good enough for me. And I'm also very far removed from, as are most of my friends and fellow songwriters, very far removed from like the kind of gross music row machine. Maybe if you were a music row trying to hunt down a publishing deal to write the next Jason Aldean song, it would be a little more competitive and awful, but that's a different world.
Do you think that maybe the public has a bit of a misconception in that they don't know that there are still guys like you out there? There are still people out there who are really creating something genuine, and it's not just the Music Row commercial aspect.
It's hard to say, honestly though, it doesn't bother me if they don't, because that stops that stops the influx of people from LA, and so, it stems the tide of all those people just coming and turning Nashville into the next Silver Lake, where you got to pay, or the next Williamsburg or Greenpoint, where you got to pay $4 billion for an apartment, and people complain. I even saw it in New Orleans, just people complaining, moving next to bars and getting the bars shut down because they complain that the bars are too loud after 3 in the morning. It's like, well, don't move next to a bar. Those like that kind of, I mean, change is inevitable, but I think that it's nice that Nashville still has this kind of slightly laissez-faire attitude to a lot of stuff, and I think that that'll change. I think that the more that people think that this is some kind of redneck backwater, is the longer that it'll be able to have a thriving community of artists.
Mm-hmm.
So like I don't really, I mean, there have always been people doing what I try to do, and in Nashville there are a lot of them, but you find them everywhere. I spent a lot of time on the road, and you see there are people all over the country, all over the world, creating art, under to a high standard. They said whether they achieve it or not, whether I achieve it or not, you shoot for a high standard, and I think that's pretty ubiquitous.
I was reading at the beginning of the interview kind of a combination of a lot of press snippets of things people have called you: master storyteller, true troubadour, all those different things. So I'm curious to know, that's from the press world, but just of everybody, fans, other musicians, what would you say is the best compliment you've received as an artist?
I don't know. I think that, man, that's hard to say, because obviously you want people writing nice things about you, but it's like you can't really take it to heart, I think that, I don't know, that's a really good question. I don't think there's anything particularly nice anyone said about me. I just think it's more like when artists that I admire, are kind enough to take me out on the road or have me open shows for them, or, connect me with people, or, that kind of seal of approval from people who I admire as artists, that's kind of cool. Or, when just being allowed to be, not allowed to be, because it's not like I'm, but just kind of, I don't know, being welcomed into a community like the East Nashville community, for the most part, is just kind of like a nice, but ultimately, if you're searching for validation, external validation, you're always going to come up short. You're always going to want more and more and more. Is there going to be enough? And you'll be depressed. So you got to, I've tried to train myself early on to just really appreciate and acknowledge a few positive things that, come my way on that front, but also to work on, like, well, you're not here to be validated. You're here to write songs. So hold yourself up to this standard of writing songs and connect with people, or that you're proud of, or that you feel like you tapped into something. Because it's what, you're not, it's not like I'm some kind of, far too obscure to be a public figure. And definitely, even those artists who are, famous, like, they're not, for me, it's like, art should be foremost. If you're an artist, songwriter, be an artist, songwriter. Make art, write songs. We go back to truth, tell your truth, and don't, I don't know. It's a hard answer, hard question.
I always like to end the interviews very open-ended, just to kind of give you the stage. What would you say to anyone who's listening in?
When you see me, give me all your money and buy all my records. Give me your beer tokens. And don't ever drink don't drink liquor from a plastic jug, ever.
Why not?
I can tell you never drank whiskey from a plastic jug.
I have.
You haven't, you still have to ask the question. You'll find out the next morning, or maybe later that night.
Some lessons have to be learned by doing them yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I would like to end with. That you put it much more succinctly, and some lessons have to be learned by doing them yourself. That's what I'd like to put out there for the youth of today.
Well, do you have a song maybe you'd like to send our listeners on their way with?
Sure. Let's see what we got here. Let's sing a song about methamphetamines.
Why not?
Yeah, why not? But you got to do it yourself, huh? I wrote the song in a Waffle House called Dixie Crystals. I got Dixie crystals running through my brain. I'm doing 135 in the passing lane. Shaking hands, white knuckle, blood on the wind. I've been running on fumes since I left Mobile, but I don't feel nothing, don't feel no pain. I got this crystal running through my brain. Cousin Donnie's on the corner with some Irish roots. Mama's hanging down with God on the nose. My head's cracking open, can't blow my nose. Grandpappy's passed out in the Sunday clothes. Baby screaming in the kitchen, driving me insane. She got Dixie crystals running through her brain. We got hydrochloric acid and red phosphate, pseudoephedrine from the Sunshine State. No lean cuisine, we're just shaking, baby. I got little girls lining up, giving it away. All for a ride on that nothing train. They got Dixie crystals running through their brain. What don't kill me now is gonna kill me in the end. Amen. I'm never sleeping again, never sleeping again. I'm running with the white devil into the wind. Y'all have been better than playing to win. And playing to lose, and it's a goddamn sin. But tomorrow's 3 or 4 days away. I got Dixie crystals running through my brain. Yeah, tomorrow's 3 or 4 days away. I got Dixie crystals running through my brain. I like the screaming baby in the background for a sec.
Well, everyone out there, it's bendelacour.com. It's just Ben and then DELACOUR.com.
That's true.
Ben, thanks so much for spending time with us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you doing this. I'm sorry we got messed up last week, Paul.
Oh, it happens. It's okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right.